nobody knows anything in the moment. And people don't talk like they don't know anything. So you're going to get a ton of people who speak in sentences. Sometimes they're yelling. Sometimes they are wagging a finger in your face, and they are going to talk to you like they know the truth and you need to listen to them, and none of them know anything. And neither do you. And so at the end of the day, take other people's statements as opinions, use it as a data point, be humble to consider different perspectives. But at the end of the day, you're going to make a million mistakes, and none of them are going to matter because you make a million little mistakes along the way. And it's about how quickly can you catch it and course correct.
Welcome to the She's So Sweet podcast, where we interview accomplished women who have worked their way to the C-suite. I'm your host, Kristi Faltorusso, Chief Customer Officer and award-winning customer success executive. I am so excited to introduce our guest today. I've got Debra Senra, who's the CEO and founder of Hyphenate. Hi, Debra. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm good. I am so, I got to tell you, I get to prepare for these episodes all the time, and very rarely am I enamored by somebody by just reading their intake form. So I got to tell you, I'm pretty hyped about our conversation today.
Well, likewise, I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful. Well, listen, before we get started and we get into all this good stuff, I want you to start by telling our listeners a little bit about yourself. Tell us about Hyphenate.
Sure. So I am the founder and CEO of Hyphenate. I spent the first 15 years, I'm going to age myself, I spent the first 15 years of my career as a solution seller in market research and consulting. So I'd talk to a customer, they'd tell me something they were working on, and I somehow had to translate that into a project that I could sell and service and then earn the right to win more business. And then I spent the last 7 years as a go-to-market leader in the SaaS space. And so Hyphenate is the combination of those two worlds. We have AI-powered software that helps solution sellers come up with their solution, document their solution, and sell their solution in a better, faster, easier way. So think better proposals and SOWs faster.
Wow. Okay. All right. So how has the past few years accelerated the work that you're doing? Because I feel like AI was like all the buzz in 2024. We continue to hear it in 2025. Like, what were the last 2 years like for you, given that kind of transformation?
Yeah, well, in a lot of ways, it unlocked the capabilities to power our platform. So solution sellers, the joke is everything is a snowflake, even when everything is the same. And so traditional software to help with proposals didn't really help solution sellers because everything that they were writing was customized. And so you couldn't pull from a document library, or you couldn't even use ChatGPT because the content was too generic. And so we give you hyper customized, hyper tailored, detailed content. And that's all powered by new breakthroughs in generative AI. But interestingly, the core of what we're doing, it's a mix of software, data science, and Gen AI. And so we got the benefits of the technology, but we are not ChatGPT with a sweater on.
Okay, very good. Well, we like to hear that. I feel like that's the big piece of feedback we get from folks who are evaluating software where AI is a priority for them. They're like, I look at software and it feels like it's just like bolted on rather than it being kind of embedded in the backbone of what the solution is actually offering.
Yeah, or it was clearly built by somebody who knows software, but not somebody who used to do the job that the software solves. And so a designer was one of my first hires. This has to be designed for users like I was. And that I don't want the software to feel like it's taking my place, because it can't.
Right.
I want to feel accelerated when I use a product. And that's hopefully what we deliver to our customers.
I love the intentionality behind that. I think you're spot on. And I think it's something that a lot of folks miss, unfortunately.
Yeah. Like you, I spent the good part of the past 7 years leading customer success organizations. And so there was no way I was going to build a business and not have the customer at the center of it.
Smart move. I wish more folks were like-minded. Okay, well, listen, I don't know what your childhood was like, and so I won't make assumptions here, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say maybe you didn't think that you would be the CEO of Hyphenate when you were little. So if you could think back to your earliest memory of like what you thought you'd be when you grew up, what did you think you were going to be? Or what did you want to be?
Yeah, well, my earliest memory, I wanted to be a paleoethnobotanist, which it's somebody that studies extinct plant life. Jurassic Park, I'm sure, played a huge role in that. The woman digging through the rhinoceros's poop. I don't know, it called to me. So that's the first job I could think of. But then I wanted to be a fashion designer. And then from like 10th grade through, I don't know, 38, I wanted to be a Supreme Court justice. It's only recently that I've decided not to go the law path. So
okay, you're gonna have to rewind. So all right, we're gonna start with the earliest memory, because even as I was preparing this, I'm like, what is a paleoethnobotanist? I was like, what? I'm like, I guess I could go Google this. I was too lazy at like 10 o'clock last night to go do more research here. So what is that even?
You know, I'm what I think it is, and it's funny because I've never looked it up. I was told at a young age that is a person who studies like plant life from the dinosaur age. And I have no idea why I wanted to be
so there's
that,
nobody in your family who did this? Because I feel like a lot of people, when I ask them these questions, they're inspired. It's like, you can be what you can see kind of thing. So like, my mom was a teacher, so I want to be a teacher. My grandma was a nurse, so I want to be a nurse. Was there anyone in your family who did this, or like anything closely related?
No, we come from I'm first generation American. My dad's side of the family owned a deli. My dad was a travel agent. My mom was the rabbi's secretary. So no, I don't know. Just came up with it.
Okay, well, I like it. So then how do we go from there to fashion designer? Because I need to understand the transitions here.
Who knows? It seemed really cool. I liked drawing and I liked clothes. So that was the merger of the two.
Okay. And then your last dream that only recently became a distant memory is Supreme Court justice. So
yes,
I need to understand, did this influence school? Did you go to school for law? Were you a poli-sci? Like, because only to 38 to say that's not the route you're going to go. Like, I need to know what happened to this point.
Yeah, so I was raised in a community that there actually were a lot of Jews in the community, but for the majority of my experience in school, I was often the only Jewish kid in the classroom. And there were a couple moments growing up where I remember being asked to pray, or a teacher asked me where my horns and tail were once. And I developed this passion for separation of church and state because it was uncomfortable for me as a kid. I went to this event. I don't know. I signed up for like a junior lawyer thing in DC, fell in love with all of the law surrounding our Constitution. I don't think I ever wanted to be a lawyer, but I loved this idea that I would have the ability to have influence over the details of church versus state and all of these things that I was passionate about. So I went to college. I had to work full time when I was in undergrad. And so I worked at the law school, always planned on going back to law school. But after 4 years of taking 20 hours of classes plus 40 hours of work, I needed a break. So I decided I was going to move to DC. I don't know. I wanted to be like a high-powered lobbyist and then go on to law school. But I couldn't get a job as a lobbyist. I got a job in a consulting and market research firm and discovered that I loved it and I loved selling. And so I always thought, okay, I'll do this and save more money and I'll go to law school next year and I'll go to law school next year. And then I kind of woke up in my late 30s and said, I don't think I'm going to law school.
Well, listen, you never say never. I've had a couple guests who have recreated themselves many times over and later than they would have thought. So
absolutely,
let's leave. I'm going to leave that one in the it's possible bucket.
Totally.
Maybe not the paleoethnobotanist.
You never know.
But you listen, it's true. We never do know. Okay. All right. So I love that, but we're going to keep that one because I like that storyline for you. And if this leads you there one day, I'm here for that. So you come back on this show if you end up on the Supreme Court. That's your promise to me. Okay. I want us to do a little reflection because I know that everyone's career, we get to where we are so many different paths, right? Like no two careers look the same. This is truly like snowflakes, right? We all are each unique in that regard. Reflecting back on your career, like what were some of the biggest pivotal moments or biggest decisions that you had to make for yourself personally that you feel like contributed to where you are now?
I'd say the first one was, I took a job out of college. You take the job that you get offered, but deciding to stay in revenue was probably the first choice. And I realized that I loved a job where somebody's qualitative assessment of me was not the primary determinant of how good I was. I loved that there was a number next to my name and that you could give me feedback on all the soft skills, but at the end of the day, I'm at the top of that leader chart and that means something. And so that was probably the first realization was I don't want to work in a job where somebody else's opinion of me is completely controlling how I'm assessed at performing in my job. So that was the first. The second is leaving solution selling and going to VC-backed SaaS. I think I was just naive. I was in solution selling. It was all the hype in the the teens, the 2015s, going to VC SaaS in Chicago. So I decided I was going to do it. And I applied for a C-suite role, VP role at a local VC startup, VC-backed startup, and got the job and realized when I was in it, like, wow, this is really different. This is not leading a global sales team. This is like leading a department in a software company. So I don't know that it was a choice and more just naivete, but I'm glad I did it. And then the last one was deciding to be a founder.
What was like, you went from, kind of the security of being in a company, and you've had a lot of security in the roles that you've had. How did you feel taking that leap and saying, you know what, I'm going to go and I'm going to go do this thing and we're going to take this risk? Like, what was that decision-making process like for you?
I think I'm the type of person that doesn't quite realize what a risk it is until I'm looking backwards.
That's probably contributed to your success.
100%. People ask me, how do I fight through imposter syndrome? And my response is like, I don't have that. I have the opposite of that. My girlfriends make fun of me because I, like most college kids, I gained quite a bit of weight my first year of college. And my roommates walked in on me one day and I was looking at my stomach. They're like, what are you doing? I was like, I look so much like Britney Spears. My roommates are like, honey, we love you, but you look nothing like Britney Spears.
You know what? I got to appreciate friends that can be honest. So good for your friends and you guys for building a relationship where transparency and communication was deeply rooted in the relationships you built. We'll call it that.
Yes. Yeah, I don't suffer from a lack of confidence. And so what typically happens is I make a decision. 6 months later, I say, holy cow, that was a big risk, but it serves me well.
That's so great. Okay, so you step out and you go do this thing. What are some of the learnings that you had now as you've been a founder and kind of building your own business? Because I have to imagine that you've learned quite a bit in this time. So what are 3 things that you would say like, oh my gosh, okay, these were like 3 big lessons learned that if I had to go back and do this exact thing again, I might do things a little bit different?
Well, the thing that comes to mind most clearly is that nobody knows anything in the moment. And people don't talk like they don't know anything. So you're going to get a ton of people who speak in sentences. Sometimes they're yelling. Sometimes they are wagging a finger in your face. And they are going to talk to you like they know the truth and you need to listen to them. And none of them know anything. And neither do you. And so at the end of the day, take other people's statements as opinions. Use it as a data point. Be humble to consider different perspectives. But at the end of the day, you're going to make a million mistakes and none of them are going to matter because you make a million little mistakes along the way. And it's about how quickly can you catch it and course correct, not do I have to make the perfect decision right now because it's going to fundamentally change the trajectory of the business. Yes, you look back and you see those moments, but actually they're a series of a bunch of micro decisions that you've made to get on the right path over time, and you're the only one that can make them. And when I talk to people who have failed or who have not reached the success they want, universally what they tell me is I should have just done what my gut was telling me to do. I spent too much time trying to please other people, doing what they were telling me to do, because they don't know. They don't know.
Yeah.
You know more than anyone. You're in it. This is your life. So That's probably the biggest one. I know you asked for 3, but that's the one.
I don't know. That one, I feel like that's worth 3. So I'll give you that. That was a good one, because I think that actually applies to a lot of people in a lot of roles, and not just being a founder and kind of building your own business. So I think that one, like I said, you get 3 points credit for that one, because it was a good one. Okay. Well, listen, I also know that going through your career journey and even the conversations that we've had, it's not been easy. There's been a lot of challenges and obstacles that you faced, and some have left scars. You know, when you think back on your career history, what were some of those significant challenges or obstacles or problems that you've faced, and how did you overcome those?
Yeah, I think there is some added stress that's gendered here, but I don't think it's 100% gendered. Whenever you are ambitious and a top performer and confident and comfortable to name that you want something more than what you have, even if you're not ready for it or you haven't earned the right to take it, that puts your head above water in a way that a lot of people they just don't do that. And when your head is above water, you open yourself up to criticism. And I think if the data is right, if you're a woman, you tend to get a disproportionate amount of that criticism, but men get it too. If you are ambitious and you say, I'm an entry-level sales rep, but one day I want to be the CRO, you are opening yourself up to people telling you all the reasons why you're not capable of doing that. And throughout your career, the higher your ambitions, the thicker skin you need to have, because that ambition is going to open you up as a target, and people are going to shoot darts at you about why you should put your head underwater. And it's hard to take it. And it doesn't, as long as you have ambitions that are beyond your current state, you will continue getting those criticisms, and you have to find a way. And I have struggled, but I have found a way to keep going, even when it feels like everyone in the world is telling you you're not good enough. And that,
I mean, it's so interesting, because when you're experiencing it, you probably don't see it for that, right? And it comes in the shape of maybe friends and mentors who might actually be the ones delivering that message. And so it's kind of like the wolf in sheep's clothing, right? You want to believe that it's well-intentioned, and you almost make that your belief system because you're hearing it from what seemingly is a safe place. But let's just agree that the delivery and the deliverer don't always have your best intentions in mind either.
No, I mean, it could be, maybe they do and they're trying to protect you. Maybe it's their own insecurities. Maybe it's competitive. Who knows? But yeah, it's going to come at you. I would actually, I've talked a lot about the gendered bias that I've experienced in my career. I tend to be in male-dominated fields.
Yep.
I tend to be in rooms filled with men. And so there have been awful moments. And I wouldn't, if I could, like, I have 2 daughters, I never want them to experience what I've experienced. But in some ways, the worst experiences that I've had that were gendered were a gift, because they allowed me to see that some things that come your way, you need to acknowledge it, but then let it go. So I had a boss in a performance review told me that, what was it? I was mouthy, and maybe that's why I didn't have a boyfriend.
Oh.
And that was like written in my review.
Wow.
And
okay.
Had it not gone to the latter part of that sentence, I might have internalized the feedback a little bit more. But because he, in some ways, gave me this gift of that final piece of the sentence, I then kind of took an out-of-body experience and said, whoa, is this somebody who should I be internalizing this person's feedback? That a boss is writing in my review that I don't have a boyfriend? Maybe I need to let that feedback go. Or maybe I need to pressure test what he's telling me with some people that I am close with and do trust, to see if it's something that I need to work on, or maybe this has nothing to do with me. And so those moments where you kind of pull yourself out and you say, whoa, that was wildly inappropriate. It helps you. I think especially women have a tendency to assume that all feedback is something that they need to absorb and fix. And that's just not true.
That is something that I struggle with daily. And sometimes it for me, for a lot of it, it came from a place of, I wanted to believe that everyone had good intentions in providing me that feedback, and that also that they knew me well enough to share that. And just, I think that it's something to be considered, right? Where is the feedback coming from? And is it a trusted source? Is it somebody that you believe should be providing you that feedback? Have they earned the right in relationships too? Well, I appreciate that. Is there anything else that you feel like, as you're thinking back, really was difficult for you to navigate, that you had to like really overcome, or any of those other challenges? Because you've done so many different things, and obviously we've had these career changes, these big milestones. Was there anything else that contributed to that, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that one of the hardest things, being a woman in a male dominated field where you can kind of exit your own experience and look at data, and the data says you're gonna go through some hard stuff, is believing when that stuff happens that it is environmental and not your fault, or something that is unique to you. So one of the hardest things that I've had to go through is pay discrepancy and pay issues. In multiple jobs, I have found out that men who report to me were being paid more than I was.
Wow.
Or I would come in as a customer success leader. I would then be successful, and they would promote me to take on the sales organization. And I would find out in that moment that the sales leader was making double what I was making. And that wasn't fixed when that person now reports into me. And it's egregious, but when you're living in the moment in this scenario, there's always a reason, or the reason that's given to you. And I actually believe, as I think about all the times that this happened, I like the people that underpaid me. They're good people. They're not overt sexists trying to ruin the world. There's a narrative in their mind that makes sense to them, and they're communicating that narrative to me, and it feels they can justify it in some way. And what's hard is the justification is often personal. Well, he negotiated a ridiculous package when he came in, and you didn't, and his was a mistake, so we're not going to course correct and fix yours because that was a mistake we never should have made. And then you think, okay, so the problem was I didn't negotiate well. But then the counterbalance to that is like, if I had negotiated harder, I wouldn't have gotten this job. We're treated differently in a negotiation. And so it's those moments where rarely does somebody do something unjust and come out and say, yeah, I did it because I'm unjust. There's a story behind it. Well, you have better numbers than your peer, but they have more executive presence. What? Well, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Like, show me an example. And now you're being defensive, which is another reason why. And you get caught in this, like, I call it like, I just want to scream into the abyss. It feels, there are moments where I say, all of the problems that I've experienced are just because I'm not good enough. And it's hard. You have to I have a lot of people in my life who pull me out of those moments, because those are the ones where it can really, that stops you. That's career ending, trajectory killing thinking, but it's real, and it happens, and I live it. So
you're fortunate enough to be surrounded by people that, again, to your point, care about you enough to lift you out of that mindset, right? And remind you that that's not the reality that you need to be living in. The She's So Sweet podcast is brought to you by Client Success. Client Success is an all-in-one customer success platform to help post-sale implementation and success teams manage customers from new to renew. Through an industry-leading platform approach, Client Success gives businesses an in-depth view into customer health, product usage trends, along with churn and risk data, so that your team can not only retain customers, but help them grow as well. Whether it's managing customer onboarding workflows in shared portals, building custom health scores, tracking sentiment with NPS surveys, or doing more with less through AI and automations, Client Success gives customer success professionals a true one-stop platform to manage all aspects of the customer journey. To learn more about the industry's fastest to implement customer success platform, visit www.clientsuccess.com. That's Client Success. Simple, powerful customer success. Okay. So enough on the challenges. I like to spend some time talking about successes. And I feel like as women, sometimes, especially ambitious women, we're so busy looking ahead that we don't stop and reflect back and look at the success and celebrate that for a moment. So I'm going to force you to do that. So as you think back over the previous years, right, and you're looking at your career, what are some of your proudest moments or biggest accomplishments to date?
I mean, I'm really proud of myself that I took the jump to founder. That was scary. I always thought I would be a CEO. I thought I would take on an existing business. I never thought I would go from 0 to 1. So I'm really proud of myself for doing that. I'm really good at work and stuff. I don't know. I mean, you put me in a job and I'm going to be successful, even if it kills me. And so as a revenue leader, I started on the account management customer success side, and 100% of the time within 6 months or a year, I would take over the entire revenue organization. I have never left a company and been replaced by one person. And that makes me really proud. Because I am productive and I can build ecosystems and I can do more than the average person. And I think that is a superpower. And then kind of a theme throughout my career is I am quirky and, girly, and I'm a hugger and I giggle and I don't hide, and I cry, and I don't hide any of that in my job. There are moments where I am an absolute focused and like, we are going to do something and I'm going to push my team to do it, and I am tough. And in the same day, I can fall into a giggle fit and need to turn off my Zoom camera, or cry at an all hands because I'm so proud of the team. And all of that can exist at the exact same time. And I have never tried to hide a corner of my personality at work. And that makes me really proud.
I mean, that is something you should be proud of, because I feel like so many people struggle with being authentically who they are, right? It's not something that they find or feel safe enough to be them until later in their career. So what contributes to your kind of like mental, emotional safety that you've always felt that you could just be yourself and show up authentically as you? Because that is not something you hear very often.
I don't think I feel the safety to do it.
Well, I appreciate you operating without a net.
Yeah. It's not a choice. I am so focused and driven, and I want to accomplish as much as humanly possible that there is literally no space left at the end of the day to compartmentalize who I am. And so if I'm going to be doing 8 investor calls plus 6 prospect calls plus 2 client calls plus overseeing a product development roadmap plus filing our taxes all in a single day, I have no space left to hide that I need another cup of coffee, or that the weather is making me blue today, or that we're going to go on a walking one-on-one because it's beautiful and I want to skip down the street in the 2 days we have where it's above 30 degree Fahrenheit. So I think that's more where it comes from, but I'll take it no matter how I get it.
I mean, you make such a great point, though, how much time we spend probably trying to alter and augment ourselves so that we feel like we're showing up as a person we think we need to in order to be successful or to be the contributor that we want to in any organization. So, it's funny because I probably am the opposite of you in that regard. Like, I probably spend too much of my time. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, damn, if I took all of that time that I thought I needed to show up a different way, and the time I take actually doing that, and gave it back to myself to just be productive, I wonder how that would transform my success rates.
Well,
I hadn't thought about that.
The other thing is you can't win, which is a lesson that I learned early on, is that if you spend hours a day prepping who you are going to show up as, you're still going to get criticized.
Yeah.
And so what is the point? There's no avoiding it. You might as well do the work that makes your work shine above anything else. And hope that you land yourself in an environment where everybody has faults, everybody has imperfections, where the environment that you're in supports you and enables you and supplies resources to prop up your weak spots and then amplifies your strengths. And if you're not in that environment, that's where you should be allocating your time, is mapping out a plan to get out.
Yeah, you make such a great point there. It took me multiple jobs and different career paths to finally find myself in an organization where I did find that. And you're right. The difference of finding that special place for me professionally has amplified my career quite significantly.
Yeah.
So it's something I think people need to stop and just also kind of think about that, right? We always are willing to assess where we're at and what we want and our goals and all these things, but these are other small pieces of that need to be thought of as well.
And I don't think it is self-imposed, but it's a vicious cycle. It's the world imposes it on us, so then we impose it on ourselves. If you look at most executive leadership teams, no one is perfect. The men on the executive team have people who are hired underneath them to augment them in a way that amplifies their strengths. You're bad at strategy. Great. We're going to hire you a director of operations so that you can go focus on what you're good at. The women are told, unless you fix these problems, you're not going to advance any further. And I think we need to, and then what happens is we become obsessed with being perfect and doing everything, because that's the only way that we're going to advance. And I think it is a really powerful moment in your career when you get very reasonable, very fair criticism and critique on where your weak spots are. And instead of saying, here's what I'm going to go do to fix that within myself, it's great. What resources are we going to allocate to augment me in those areas so that we can get the best of me in other places?
Again, another wonderful point, and not something that we probably see it play out all the time and don't ever recognize it for what it is.
Yeah.
Or don't want to acknowledge it for what it is. Okay. Well, listen, I think this is actually a great segue to my next thing that I love to talk about. One of the themes of this episode, of all of my episodes on the show, is empowered women empower women. It's one of my favorite things. It's, the guests that I have the privilege of inviting onto the show all do this in different ways. And so when you think about a statement like that, how do you think about empowering? I kind of think about like the future leaders, because it doesn't matter where they are in their life. I feel like as long as we empower and uplift each other, eventually everyone's going to find that level of success that they're seeking. So what are you doing today to do that?
I think the biggest thing that I try to do is be really honest about my experience. You run the risk, the longer you're in a career and the more negative experiences you have, you run the risk of being read in the market as like a woe is me complainer. Debra blames all of her lack of success on bias. And I feel that every time I talk about this, that's a risk, that by talking about this stuff, I'm going to get branded as somebody who says, oh, well, she couldn't hack it, so she says it's because she's a woman. And I push that way aside, and I try to be extremely open about my experience, because we've talked about, I've had unfair criticism, I've had pay discrepancy issues, I've been sexually assaulted at work. And as all of these things were happening, I was embarrassed and didn't want to ask other women if it had happened to them, because getting a no would have been more painful than not asking. And no one was talking about it. So the sexual assault in particular, it happened at a Christmas party. I immediately went home. It took me 2 weeks to tell my husband it had happened, because I was ashamed. It took me a while to talk about it. I ended up talking about it. And it turns out a lot of women had that experience, not necessarily with the same person, though some did. And we all just weren't saying anything, and it was holding us all back, this shame and confusion. And so I just try to talk as much as possible, even if somebody else isn't experiencing the exact same things. What I'm hoping is that when something doesn't feel right, there's a safer space to at least ask the question. I got some feedback. There's something in my head that's asking me, should I take this seriously? I hope that by speaking up, people feel more confident to voice that. And that, I don't know that it's realistic that it's going to go away, but it hopefully makes it easier.
I mean, I can't think of a better example, to be honest with you. I know that a lot of people do a lot of different things, but I think you kind of leading out in that way will inspire folks to think differently, to act differently. And so I think that is a wonderful example of that. To the saying of like, you can't be what you can't see, right? If people see you leading by example, by speaking your truth and sharing your stories and being so transparent about your experiences, I like to think that will only lead to good things with other people doing the same.
That's the goal.
That is the goal. That is a goal. Okay. So we're going to talk about balance for a second, because I've had some of my guests who are like, balance isn't real. And then other folks be like, no, you just have to be very intentional about how you balance. And so I like to get everyone's take on this. It seems like it's a polarizing topic, in all very good and interesting ways, but you obviously have your hands full, right? I think you mentioned you have 2 daughters, you have a spouse, you've got your company, you've got all these things. I'm sure you're just taking care of yourself. I see some medals behind you, which I'd love to learn more about. So how are you doing it all, right? How are you finding a way to check all the boxes in all the areas of your life that make you you?
I would say an equally honest answer is I'm not, and I am. And what I mean by that is I get to decide what it all is for me and what that means. And parenthood is a great example. I have 2 daughters. I'm an excellent mother. I have never once questioned how good I am as a mother, but I hated bedtime. I do not do bedtime. It makes my skin crawl. There's something about it. I just hate it. And so I don't do it. And my husband is an elementary school teacher. He has a very challenging career, but from an hours in the day standpoint, he has more than I do, especially in the summer when he's off. I do not even attempt to do 50-50 parenting or 50-50 housework. That's not fair. We don't have 50-50 time. We're in agreement about what that means. He does more housework than I do. He does more of the day-to-day mental load parenting than I do. Does not make me a bad mother. Doesn't make my kids love me any less. And so on the one hand, I would say I don't have it all because I don't put this pressure to do everything on myself. And I still think I'm really good as a wife, as a mom, as a business leader, even though it is not balanced. And I don't do what my mother did. And that's okay. My daughters are seeing a very different kind of role model, and both have equal value. I'm just leaning into what works for me as a person.
I think that's the greatest answer. Honestly, that would be my answer too, because very similarly, that's the same role my husband plays in this house. Someone asked me about, like, they're like, oh, I hate doing laundry. I'm like, oh, I haven't done laundry in 15 years because that's what my husband does. And I don't do the dishes because that's what my husband does. And like, there is no division of labor that is assigned to a gender in this house, right? It's not like, oh, this is women's work and this is men's work. It's like, no, we need to do all this work to maintain a house, to maintain a family, to maintain our marriage. And so that means we have to divide and conquer. And some days I give 0 because I don't have any to give. And some days I can give 50 or I can give 75, right? And to day, that's going to change. And then I think this brings me to a very important point, something that I continuously see popping up now. And it's probably because I saw it once and I believe it. And so now I see it all the time. It's like when you want to look for a red car, then every car is red. But somebody once said is like the most important decision you'll make in your lifetime is the partner you choose. Mm-hmm. And I have never believed anything more because of my husband, because of the example that he provides for me day in and day out, because of our relationship and who he is. It affords me the ability to be me and do the things I want to do and live my life the way that I want to. And it sounds like that's the life that you and your spouse have designed.
Yeah. And it's about, I say I'm a better person because of my spouse and vice versa, that we augment each other. I get to lean. I love cooking. So I do the cooking. He doesn't mind doing dishes, so he does the dishes. I hate dealing with the school. He's a teacher. So like he has no empathy when my daughters get hurt. He's like, it's not broken, you're fine. I give snuggles and let them snuggle in bed with me at night. And we get to be the best versions of ourselves because I take on the stuff that he doesn't like and vice versa. And yeah, it's a constant negotiation. And I think finding the right partner is really important, but then, my girlfriends that struggle in this area, it's not always that their husbands are saying you need to do more housework. It's that they feel guilty for not doing it. Their husbands are totally fine with doing disproportionate amounts, but they get in their head. And I understand why. I had a neighbor once tell me, does it ever bother you that someone else is raising your children? And I was like taken aback. I was like, in what world is someone else raising my children? I'm raising my children. So I get where the guilt comes from, and it's not always self-within, but you have to, like, that's another thing that you just got to that's all right, dude, push that to the side. I know what's real in my house. My kids know. So I'm not going to let that bother me.
You know, kind of going back to the everyone's a snowflake, though. It's like, who's to say raising, what works for you in your home is what works for you in your home. It's like, I have some friends that are stay-at-home moms, and they cannot imagine or fathom the amount of hours that I spend working and dedicated to my career, and the ambition that I have to get to another level. They're like, to them, it doesn't make any sense. In the same vein, I'm like, I could never stay home with children all day. That actually seems like my personal hell. So we have to agree that, one, we will never judge each other, because we've made decisions that work for us and feed us in ways that we'll never be able to understand. And I think we need to get to a place in society where everyone could just, I don't want to say mind your own business,
mind your business.
but mind your business, because who cares, right? If everyone is happy and healthy, let them live. Let them do what works for them. Who cares?
Imagine how much more beautiful this world would be if we just didn't obsess about what other people are doing that's harming no one.
Right. No one. Well, this brings me to social media comments really quick, because it's the judgment that happens in a comment thread on anything, right? Whether it is LinkedIn or TikTok or this or that, is really? You're going to stop your day to say that thing you just said to somebody that you don't know, who's not doing anything to offend you. Yeah. You need to tell that person you didn't like the color of their skirt? Really? It's just people. We're all going to mind our own business. Can we make 2025 the mind your own business year? Let's do that. I'm here for that. Okay. So you've already had 8 chapters to your career, 8,000 actually. And so as you kind of think about your career evolving, and you've already established that you're super ambitious, and you probably can't think a day past tomorrow, but do you think about what the future looks like for you? Do you have ambitions that kind of spawn beyond this place that you're in with owning your company right now?
Yeah. It's, for the first time ever, it's not another role. It's a stage of the thing that I'm building. So I have a vision for where I want this company to go. I have insane confidence that the market exists and it's needed and we can do it. And so it's just one step at a time getting there, so that 3-5 years from now, I can look backwards and say, oh my God, look at how far we've come. I'm really excited about that moment. I know most founders talk about an exit. That, of course, is important to me. But more than that, I just want to look backwards and say, I can't believe I went from nothing to this. That's what I'm excited for.
Well, I can't wait to see that become a reality. So before we wrap up today, what's the one thing you want to leave our listeners with?
Let's see. I think the best advice I got was treat feedback on who you are and your work like softballs. You should catch some of them, and you should let some of them pass you by. And I think I put it as, don't put yourself in your own prison. You are never going to be perfect. You will always have areas of improvement. That none of that describes humans. The most successful people in the world have that to be true. Don't tell yourself, I have to fix everything that's coming my way before I can be successful, or I have to be perfect in all these ways before I can take the next step. No one has ever regretted jumping forward and figuring it out as they're midair.
Okay, Debra, you had something in the intake form that I'm going to read, because I think this might be the best piece of advice I've seen on this. And I think you just forgot it, but you have here, have the confidence of a rich white man.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, Wow. And honestly, I got to tell you, after recording this episode with you, I think you have more confidence than they do.
Thank you.
You're crushing it in the confidence department for sure. And I'm I'm personally invested in the success of your journey. And I can't wait to see where you take this company. And I really do hope that you achieve all of the goals that you've got set out for yourself. And honestly, given your trajectory so far, I'm confident that you will.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I have that confidence of a rich white man that you are going to be successful in achieving all that you want to. And I wish the best of luck on that.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate your time today so much. And folks listening, if you've enjoyed this episode, please rate and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, subscribe on YouTube, connect with me on LinkedIn. And until next time, we'll see you soon. Hi, guys. I want to share a bit about an organization that I support called Wednesday Women. They're on a mission to increase the visibility of executive women leaders that you should know, learn from, and be inspired by. On LinkedIn, they share the profile of 2 amazing women each week, on Wednesdays, of course. And now just imagine if we all followed, amplified, and nominated the women that we want to see more of. Their initiative provides examples of women CEOs, founders, sales executives, technical leaders, and so many more. By supporting Wednesday Women, you'll see more of these professionals in your social feeds, of course, but also on stages, podcasts, and panels. If you're interested in learning more and supporting their initiative, head over to www.wednesdaywomen.org or follow them on LinkedIn.